Good evening, guys, and welcome back to the classroom with Architect Mark. Last night, we discussed about what you call that photo match. Yes, and we're gonna continue on the discussion and use a new uh, photo, which we will photo match, so that we can show you what the other options are when we are actually photo matching. So let's head on over to the classroom. I have prepared everything. And though I did not test this, so we shall see. Let's go ahead and start the timer right now. So, the very important thing when photo matching is that you have geometry uh, in your space. Now, this geometry ideally is at origin, but what if your model came first? For example, let's uh, put up a wall here. So we're just doing a random wall that probably is on the image that we want, which is this image we don't know anything about, unlike last time where we knew the uh, size. We have actual measurements. So let me just pull up the photo and let's talk about the photo for a little bit. So this is a house that is on an incline. So that makes it very uh, challenging. And there's this wall here, and then it has uh, a firewall and then another wall here. So you want to be considering which ones will be the reference that you will use for your photo matching. So right now our wall is just a single height wall. So let's just assume a height right now. I would say, let's say this wall is around like 3 meters high. This wall, this specific wall, 3 meters high. So we are basically determining a height by a view, and let's make this into 3 meters. So if you don't want to modify your geometry outright, you can just put like pull out guides like this, and this is what we will use to start our photo match. But we want the origin to be moved hereabouts. So how do we do that? We want to use this tool to move the axes. We want it right there. So identify the red and green, and we basically move the origin from the original position to this new position. So this is if you would be uh, creating a match photo and you already had geometry created that is not on origin. So let's enter the match photo interface, choose the photo, this new one, and then so right now we have turned on red and green, and it's outside geometry. The style is outside geometry. So the presentation of our grid becomes different when you choose a different uh, one here, but the idea is mostly the same. You need to use the rods to ascertain some angles that the vanishing points will respect, and also setting the vanishing point, the horizon line after that. So we have our origin here. Let's move it a little bit lower. And you can see our 3 meters is here. It's identified by our guides. So let's put it here. And then right now, we can't see the 3 meters because it's lining up right along the horizon line. So we want to change that. But before we do that, so we've moved the origin. Now let's move some of the rods and identify angles. So you can actually move these beyond each other. It doesn't need to follow the what was above should be above, and then what's below should be below. So as you can see, it's already lining up pretty nicely over there. Now let's move our red rods to some areas that we know will be definitely along our uh, perspective. So we want to be sure that these all will work with our vanishing point. So as you can see, right now the horizon line is tilted, but we're sure that the horizon line should be lower than this gate. So when we move this edge, this endpoint, you can see that the horizon line moves lower just as expected. All right, so we're just eyeballing it right now, and apparently our photo match is a little bit uh, lower. I mean, it's scaled smaller than what it's supposed to be. So we just scale that up using the same technique that we used last time. So now we're identifying the height to be 3 meters along this way. And so we can commit that and start to model the rest of the geometry. Now, so this is one of the primary uses for photo match. So once you say you're done, and you can basically edit your model just so long as uh, you don't do an orbit just like that. You should only just be panning when you're modeling in this mode, because you can do that. I mean, you don't need to, but you can if you're used to actually working with other programs. You might be really comfortable with this. Now, for example, here, since we can't see behind, we'll just identify or mark. Let's use the tape to mark this, and then do an orbit, and then move our geometry properly, and then go back to photo match. But let's, because we need another wall side here. So let's identify this 295. So let's just do same here. So what use could this have for you? I can see this being used for example, you're creating a scene and you want to develop the uh, areas that are around your building. For example, we're building over this part right here, so we are basically just making a quick uh, a quick sketch of the rest of the environment, which would ideally help us in uh, showing the uh, bringing more interest into the design. If the sides of your uh, building are all modeled, I mean, you could see here that it doesn't really take that much time to uh, recreate something, especially if you're not looking for the if you don't need to be properly scaled. You just, well, with photo match you will be almost scaled, but if you don't need to be really precise, you can use this technique to actually uh, create a very convincing model of the structures beside your own beside the one that you're currently designing. So it can also help us to determine a slope if you really want to. I mean, if you create the next post here, the second next post, you can kind of identify where the height should lie, and you're gonna be able to create the sidewalk much better, and you can actually make a very convincing environment right next to your very own building. So that's one of the uses of photo match. So I suppose since we did an interior last time, we did an exterior this time, um, and talked about the practical use of photo match. We can probably move on to something else, but let me just think about it, because there might just be something else with photo match that we haven't really talked about yet. Projection of textures, while that is pretty interesting, you don't really want that for if you're going for a more realistic render. So let's leave it at that for now, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care and good night.